right, welcome back, guys. So today's episode is based off of some Instagram questions that I've gotten in my DMs and also in a question box that I threw up. So we're going to kind of be diving into those, but first, before I do that, and so I did a post last week where I talked about the difference between regulation and calm, because it seems like most people, when they think about regulation, they think it's about being calm. And that can definitely be what it looks like, but that's not actually what regulation is. But what I am going to do is explain to you that nervous system regulation does not mean calm. Same thing with nervous system rewiring or nervous system repair. Okay. So if this is your first time here, then I'm going to dive a little bit into this. If you're not new here, then you already know this. But nervous system regulation does absolutely nothing until you rewire. Okay. And rewire and repair can be the same thing. It just kind of depends on how you think about the nervous system. But essentially, the nervous system is it's in your body. It's made up of nerves. It's made up of synapses. It's all these different things talking to each other. It's your eyes are involved, your ears are involved, your mouth is involved, your touch is involved. All the different senses are involved. And so the nervous system is constantly scanning the environment in order to keep you safe. All right. And basically what happened is that whenever you were little, you were not able to regulate anything in your body on your own. Therefore, you had to co-regulate. Okay. This is why little babies, whenever they're screaming and like crying and they get picked up and you're like, shh, shh, everything's okay, they calm down because they sense that you are calm. Or if you're a mom or dad and you've been like up all night with a baby and you're like, just go to bed, they can pick up on that too. Okay. So again, that's not necessarily because they are now calm. That is because they've learned that it is safe. All right. The same thing is true now with adults. It's just you've now had 40, 60 years of programming that was done whenever you were a child before about the age of 10-ish, because that's whenever your brain starts to actually be able to do this on its own without co-regulating. You've been living those patterns for however long you've been alive that you learned whenever you were a child. Okay. Now, again, this is why I said regulation won't do much until you repair or rewire, because if you are just regulating a nervous system that is like totally fried and learned that it was not safe, it's going to feel better for the immediate, but it's not actually going to have a lasting change. It's not really going to be that transformative. Versus if you rewire first, and rewired simply means showing your body that in a specific situation, when you hear a specific tone of voice, when you smell a certain thing, when you get the phone call from a specific person, that everything is safe. Okay. Then honestly, the regulation side of things becomes less important because you're not going to be activated by whatever it is that you are experiencing. Okay. And so that's one of the biggest things to keep in mind, is that the regulation side of things, yes, is super important. Making sure that you're taking care of yourself, doing all of the things is very, very important. However, you have to rewire first so that your body, when it gets that stimulus, does not automatically go into activation mode. Okay. And I do that very specifically in my Rewired and Regulated program, where I really show women how it is possible to rewire their system and then therefore learn to regulate whenever they're activated, whenever they're in a down state, whatever it is, so that they can, one, feel safe in their life, and two, really show up as the person that they want to show up in life and in business. Okay. All right. And so that's just a little bit of background here. So today, again, I really want to talk about what regulation actually means versus what it kind of is looking like on social media or with different coaches. So the wellness industry is like totally getting this wrong. And it's similar to the functional health space, where at first functional health practitioners had, and a lot of them still do, this is just a blanket statement. I'm not actually specifically saying that every single person is bad, right? Because they're not. This is just blanket on how the big people take over everything, and it kind of makes the trickle down effect. And so function health, not the company, but functional health, whenever it first came out, was really about like that root cause healing. But unfortunately, over the last few, probably 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, there's been sort of a shift where, yes, it still is root cause, but they've kind of latched on where it's like one thing. So it's mold or it's like reverse osmosis water and lack of minerals. It's like one thing is like the thing that um, is affecting everything in life. And that's not necessarily how it is. They've also somewhat gotten away from that the actual root cause effect as well. And the same thing is true with all this nervous system talk that we see now, where a lot of people don't actually understand, one, what the nervous system is and what the main function of it is, and two, what regulation actually means and what it actually looks like in a day-to-day life. Okay. And so this is where I want to talk about this now, because we know that it's probably following the same trajectory as it did with functional health practitioners. And again, blanket statement, not everybody's like this. Okay. So let's see. Before I tell you about what is getting in the way of your healing, I want to give you a picture of what's actually happening inside of you. Okay. Because your nervous system is not a mood, right? Like, it's not like this, like, it's not that you feel anxious, or it's not that you are this like certain type of personality. Your nervous system is a living, intelligent system that has been running in the background, usually in your subconscious, for your entire life, literally since before you were born, right? Like, I don't remember what week it forms and develops, but like, it's happened since before you were born. And it's been learning and watching and hearing and listening and everything from the world around you. And it's been learning what is safe and learning who can be trusted, learning what again safety generally looks like. It's also been learning what being unsafe looks like. And this does not have to be that you are running from a tiger anymore, like everybody does the example. This can just be that you learned that we don't say I love you because that feels like kind of weird. We don't give hugs because that feels weird. We don't charge what we actually are worth because that would mean that we're a bad person, whatever it is, right? And there's some, your body's so good at this because we as humans are meant to live in like a clan, right? In a group of people. And so therefore we want to fit in, because if we fit in, like back in the old day, we would be with a group of people. We would have other people looking out for us. Our chances of survival were so much greater. Now, nowadays, we don't necessarily have to worry about survival per se from like a saber-toothed tiger coming to get us or whatever. But now it's more of like these social media things that feel really hard and scary, or the job loss, or whatever it is. And so we want to stick with what we know and what feels comfortable. Being the black sheep is actually really, really hard for a lot of people's systems, because that means that they're putting themselves in quote unquote danger. Okay. And the reason that this happens is because your nervous system does not use logic. It doesn't respond to like very reasonable cognitive arguments. You cannot think your way past what it is feeling. You cannot use willpower to override it. All it does is it speaks in like a felt or lived in experience, right? And just what that looks like is like your chest tightening when whenever you get a call from somebody and you're like, oh, I don't want to talk, or maybe it drops and you're like, I don't want to talk to this person. Or in like, before you have a hard conversation, or even whenever you are speaking in front of people, maybe your eyes tear up. Or if you keep waking up at 2 a.m. and you're like, why am I waking up at 2 a.m? I'm doing everything like quote unquote right. Okay. So this is where like the responses that your body is doing and giving you are not these like random things that are happening. They are truly intelligence. And your nervous system learned like really specifically in like in these different moments that you went through. Again, usually when you were young, they learned that in order to make sense of what happened, like this is what it had to look like for you specifically. So this is going to be very different for each and every person. And let me just give you an example. So whenever I was going through confirmation, I was in 8th grade. That's when our diocese did it. And maybe I was younger. I don't remember. I think it was confirmation. I don't know, whatever. And I remember in order to go through the process, you had to get like interviewed. And so I went in and I was being interviewed by this nun who like absolutely terrified me, because she just never came off as like this warm person. It was very much like kind of standoffish. And I went in there and for like no reason really, well, I know why, but for no apparent reason, I started crying. And she was like, why are you crying? And instead of being like kind and compassionate, she was quite, as I took it, like very judgmental. And so therefore, what my system learned is that when I am like one on one with somebody who is like, quote, an authority, my body kind of shuts down and my eyes start to water, my voice starts to go funny, and it like doesn't work super well. So I've had to slowly rewire this because that is what I learned should be happening. Okay. And so these are things that your body has also learned, again, in order to make sense of whatever it was around you. So in that specific example, my body was probably saying, if I tear up, if I get nervous, and if I should be vulnerable, then somebody will take care of me. But what actually happened was the opposite, that rejection. And therefore, that's what I then carried on, honestly, through my adult life, and I still struggle with sometimes. Okay. Even though I understand it and I am rewiring it, I thankfully don't have to go in that many situations anymore where it's like one on one with like a quote authority person. So it's not that big of a deal anymore. But it is something that is so ingrained in me. Okay. And in my work, I talk about the 7 deadly wounds. The main ones that we talk about are that rejection, abandonment, fear, and powerlessness. There's a few other ones as well. And these are wounds that you have learned. And again, these are based off of Christ. So he has felt every single one of these. And these are wounds that you have learned whenever you went through a situation like I just described, or your basketball coach told you that you were too short, or that your parents said, why didn't you get straight A's? Right? So cognitively, you're like, this should not have had that big of an effect on me, but it still does because of the way that your body understands and has interpreted it. Okay. And again, you do not have to have a terrible childhood for these wounds to like live inside of you. Every single person has these. Again, even Jesus had them, because remember, Jesus felt every single thing that we feel. And so therefore, he even has experienced these things, all right, because of us, but he also has experienced these things. And the women that I work with are like such high achievers. They're leaders, and they were raised, most of them, by parents who were like genuinely good people, but they're still people. We are still people. I am still wounding my children, even though I try my best not to, because I'm a fallen person. The only thing I can do is become aware of that, acknowledge that, do my best to apologize for that, and to ask Christ. And I always say, like, Blessed Mother, like, please, like, fix the little cracks with gold so they're even more beautiful. That's the only thing that we can really do, is, again, trying to better ourselves and have that awareness, okay? And these wounds don't require, like, cruelty or, like, physical abuse or anything like that. It just requires one specific moment, like a single moment where your body connected, like, in order to stay safe and to stay loved and to stay connected, I therefore have to do X, Y, or Z. And from that moment forward, your nervous system built a survival strategy around whatever conclusion that you drew, whatever you perceived to be true. Okay. And that survival strategy has been running inside your body literally ever since. Okay. And so that's what I take on it, because I do not believe that, again, regulation is going to fix those things. You really have to go deep, rewire them, and then regulate if necessary. And honestly, from that point, it's not super necessary, because you're already going to start taking care of yourself, because you're going to strip away all those things that say you have to work so hard and you have to do all these things and be this person, and you're going to be okay to rest. You don't have to regulate as much. Okay. And again, now let's talk about what regulation actually means. So again, this is like everywhere nowadays. Regulate, regulate, regulate. Again, this is a good thing. I'm not going to get into the etymology or anything like that. Generally speaking, though, if you hear regulate, people typically think of like breathing slower, going for a walk, doing journaling exercises, doing yoga, like doing things like that are going to kind of bring you back to a baseline. And again, those things are really good. Those things help. Aside from yoga, I do all of those things. I do soul core instead. And again, these are good things. So like, I'm not telling you to stop breathing or stop your breathing practice or anything like that. What I'm saying is that in order to help them be like actually supportive for you, you need to first rewire your system. Okay. So what are these almost like coping mechanisms? What are they actually doing? Well, they're essentially like turning down the volume on the smoke alarm. So think of your body like it has an alarm. The alarm is going off because you're in a situation that has triggered something. And that alarm is like unbearable. That can show up that can manifest physically, emotionally, spiritually, in relationships, whatever. And you have learned to quiet the alarm. Okay. And the problem with that is that you're not actually going into the kitchen or into the house, whatever, to figure out like, why is there smoke? So yes, we're down regulating, but we're not actually figuring out why there's smoke in the first place. And that is that wound that I'm speaking of. Okay. You're not figuring out why your nervous system actually believes that it has to sound the alarm. And so what happens is that the alarm keeps going off again and again and again. And until something says in your body like, okay, the alarm can go off for a little bit right now, right? But then the alarm's going to come back, and you've just gotten really, really good at dampening the alarm. The other way you can think about it is if you're like a house and you start to notice your house has a big crack in the wall, and you're like, where in the world did this crack come from? Let's repaint it because this crack is really ugly. So maybe you get some, what's that called? Whatever that pink stuff is that you put in, mud, whatever it's called. And you start to like mud the walls, sand it, you paint it, everything looks beautiful again. That is regulation, okay? What you're not doing though is figuring out, why is there a crack in the first place? And you might do a little bit of investigation. You might kind of walk around the house. You might look in the basement. You might try to figure out like, oh, what's going on? But you're not actually going deeper to figure out like, what is the foundation actually doing and why did it allow this crack to happen? And how do we fix it so that the crack no longer happens? Because you just regulated by beautifully painting the wall again or putting up wallpaper. But after a little bit, it's going to crack again. And you're going to get so annoyed and be like, why does this wall keep cracking? I'm doing everything right. And it's because you're not going deeper under the surface, right? It's the same thing with all of these different regulation tools. They're all good, beautiful tools. However, if you like are not actually fixing what's underneath of why you need the tools, it's not going to work. Remember I talked about the functional health stuff at the beginning? This is that same idea where, again, we really want to get to the root of why the alarm is going off and to fix that so that we don't just keep down regulating it. Okay. And so what that means is that true regulation is not in management. True regulation is not just calm. True regulation is actually your nervous system learning that it is safe and being aware that it is safe, and not taking this past experience and bringing it into your current experience right now. Okay. That is going to be what actually turns the alarm off at the source. That's what actually is going to be what allows you to see that it's not just the basement wall that's cracked. It's actually underneath of the house has a giant spring that has been slowly letting all the dirt that was supporting the house fall into the water. And therefore the house is like sitting on very uneven ground. And it's going to be a lot of work sometimes to fix that house, but that's going to be the thing that you need to do in order to actually make it so the house stops cracking. Okay. And so, like, really honestly, right now, there's so much content out there, which is actually more overwhelming for your system because you can look up attachment style quizzes, trauma informed stuff, breathing protocols, journaling prompts, like somatic exercises, like all those things. And again, they're good things, but again, honestly, it's like overwhelming, and that can put you in a more dysregulated state because you're going to be like, I don't even know what to start with. And if you're already in an activated state of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, you're going to be like, I don't even know. Especially if you're in that freeze or fawn, you're going to totally shut down. Okay. And so right now, like, again, nothing is wrong with you. Your body's just sounding the alarm, and you have to figure out why it's sounding the alarm. Okay. And the other thing that the wellness industry is getting wrong, and a lot of these coaches are, is that we have removed God from all of this, which you cannot do, right? Again, as Catholic Christian women, we know that when you remove God, you are going to remove all meaning from whatever it is that you're removing him from. When you remove the question of like who this woman actually is and like who she was created for and why she was created, like all you're left with is like optimization, essentially, not restoration. Our goal is not just to optimize us as humans. Our goal is to really restore so that we can get to heaven, right? And so, therefore, like my faith is not something that I just add on to this work, because this is literally the foundation of everything. because like this is the ground that this work stands on, because I believe that God truly is the healer. I believe that he created you with a body that is so intelligent and a soul that is obviously irreplaceable, and he wants you to get to heaven. He desperately wants you to get to heaven. And I'm going to guess if you're listening to this, you desperately want to get to heaven too, right? But what happens is that if your healing framework does not bring you into encounter with who Christ is and address even those deeper wounds that aren't even about business, right? They are about, do you accept help from him? Do you believe that he, like, yes, you might cognitively believe that he is a good father and that he loves you, but do you actually believe that? Do you actually believe that he will provide for you? Do you believe that you have to work super, super hard to provide for yourself? Or do you believe that you can just do your best? And even if you don't finish your to-do list, then he will take care of the rest. And he will do it for you. Right? We cannot do this without Christ. Okay? All right. So now let us talk really fast about how do we know if this is the work that you specifically are missing. Okay. So I want to give you some different signs that there's a wound underneath underneath of your nervous system behavior that like you have not necessarily been aware of before. Okay. And the goal with this is not to make you feel bad. The goal with this is to help you name that part so that you can then see like, oh, this is the crack. Okay. Like this is the alarm that has been going off and I've just been silencing it. Right. Okay. Next, first one, you are a people pleaser, right? So you love making everybody happy. You love making sure that you are doing whatever the person is like in front of you is going to be best supportive for them. Now, this inherently is not a bad thing, right? There's a rightly ordered way to serve people, but there's the wounded way of serving people, which is this people pleaser, where you are afraid that if you say no, that something bad is going to happen, whether to you, to the other person, and you're putting all of that responsibility upon yourself. Okay. So that's the first one. You are a people pleaser. The next one, you cannot rest. So you might schedule like slow mornings, or you schedule a vacation, or you go to bed at a decent hour or something like that. But even when you're doing these things, you are unable to actually fully rest, right? And fully rest means that you get up from those things and you're like, oh, I have to do this next thing right now. I just talked to a woman this morning. She runs a paid ad agency, and she is a wonderful client. I love her so much. If you're listening to this, I love you. But she is like typical type A personality. And so she always just thought it was her personality that was like, quote unquote, making her like this. But when we got to the root of it, she was like, whoa, this is actually not my personality. Like, I want to have slow mornings. I want to do these things, but I feel like I can't, because if I don't just work all the time, then that means something about me. Right? So yes, we could regulate through that, but we don't just want to regulate. We want to get to the root, because that's what Christ really wants us to do. He's using all these things to help us dive deeper into our sanctification. Okay. And so what we did with her is figure out like, where is this actually coming from? Like, you're doing quote unquote everything right, but it still feels like even when you're sitting at the pool with your kids, that you need to be making an Instagram story or sending a Slack message or whatever. And that for her specifically came from this fear of powerlessness, or from this wound of powerlessness. And then we're going through that. We're going to process it, and then we'll teach the regulation tools so that she doesn't, but again, she probably won't even need them, because she won't feel the need to slip back into that workaholic mode. Okay. So that's the second one. So people pleasing, inability to rest. One thing too with the inability to rest is a lot of women, they might like kind of try to hide the rest. So they might lay down on the couch when everybody's gone, and then they hear the door open and they like jump up and pretend like they're cleaning or something like that. Super common. Another one, health things that just like will not resolve. Okay. So like gut issues, just speaking with another woman with like, she's had this eye stuff going on, tension, fatigue, stuff like that. Okay. Your body is trying to tell you something, and you just have to listen. And it can be really hard to listen sometimes, but it's super important that you do. Another one is that you give your all to everybody. And again, that's a beautiful, beautiful thing if it is rightly ordered. Okay. You give your all to somebody, and you're doing it because you know that this is the person in front of you that you are called to serve. But when somebody tries to care for you, something inside of you deflects and like says, I don't need that help. Even if you desperately need it, that receiving feels so uncomfortable and it's like not something that you want. And then the last one is performing. So you're really good at kind of being this person that you feel like you should be in a room. Okay. And this isn't a bad thing. This was just what you had to do in order to stay safe. Okay. So some people, this is more for some people than others. Like personally am not good at performing. I go the opposite direction and I shut down versus other people thrive on that performing. And again, performing is not a bad thing. Obviously, acting and singing is a beautiful thing if it is rightly ordered versus if you are putting on this face just to make sure that people don't see the real you. Okay. All right. So let's see. What happens though whenever you actually change all of this? Well, what happens first off is that your body stops hating you, essentially. Your physical symptoms start to go away. That's a huge one. And they go away in a way that just is like simple. You don't even have to think about it. The weight comes off. You don't even think about it. You eat what you want to eat, which is actually nutritious, good food, not what you think will make you feel better. In business, like your business is going to change. You're going to be able to increase your price and not make it mean anything about you or your clients or anything like that. I just literally got off a call with a client where we increased her price and she was like, this feels kind of scary, but like a little bit stretchy and kind of good. And then we talked about like, what is that going to do for her and her family? And so just reinforcing that. Your relationships will change not because the people around you change, but because you have stopped needing them to help regulate your nervous system for you. And again, co-regulation is not necessarily a bad thing. That's the point of having human relationship. And this is why, like, if I have somebody else say they're going to use Chat GPT for nervous system regulation, it doesn't work because it's a computer. It doesn't have feeling. It doesn't have tone. It can't read tone of voice. It doesn't have a nervous system. When you're around calm people, when you're around people who are regulated, you are naturally going to become more regulated. Okay. Same thing. You've probably been around people and you're like, you feel like a hot mess. Like you're stressing me out. That's the same thing. Okay. So you need to be around people who are regulating for you because your body is going to respond to those people as well. Okay. And even when you're around people who are like quote unquote hot messes, like you're still going to be able to be yourself whenever you heal these and rewire your system. All right. Your prayer life is going to get better. You're actually going to be able to feel God and hear God. You're going to be able to understand what it is that he's speaking because all those different voices in your head are going to kind of dissipate. And even when the point with this is not perfection, like, yes, things are still going to happen. So you might not hear God perfectly all the time, but you're going to be able to discern, like, is this my voice? Is this the world's voice? Is this the evil one's voice? Or is this God's voice? Okay. So again, this is not about perfection. None of this work is about perfection. All of this work is about just restoration, about becoming that person that God wants you to be. He needs you to be. Okay. And so what this looks like for you right now is that you right now should look in the show notes or DM me, wherever you're listening to this, whatever, comment the word wide awake, I guess 2 words, because I have a brand new free Telegram community where I teach this work regularly. Like this is not surface level content. It's the real thing. The link is in the show notes. I want you to come, like, listen, ask questions, and really start to get a feel for whether this is the right next step for you. Because if you've been managing yourself for a long time, you're probably super good at it, like super good at it. But you were made for more than managing yourself. Okay. You were made to thrive. You were made to be that woman who gets other people to heaven, especially herself and her family. Okay. So again, right now, I want you to go to the show notes, grab that free Telegram community where I'm going to put up regular trainings, very similar to this, but even deeper. And I would love to see you inside.